I'm so glad you're here with us today. We're diving deep into A Course in Miracles, and if you're just joining our community, you might be wondering what this course is all about. I'd love to invite you to check out the very first video on this channel, where I break down exactly what A Course in Miracles is, how it came to exist, and why it's been transforming lives for over 5 decades. It'll give you the perfect foundation for everything we explore together here. Now, let me ask you something. Have you ever prayed for something with all your heart, poured your deepest longing into those words, and then waited, wondering if anyone was really listening? Have you ever felt that hollow silence after a prayer, that uncertainty that makes you question whether God actually hears you, whether your voice matters in the vastness of the universe? You're not alone in that feeling. So many of us have been taught to pray as if we're begging an authority figure who might say yes, might say no, or might simply ignore us altogether. We've learned to bargain, to plead, to make promises we hope will tip the scales in our favor. But what if everything you've been taught about prayer has been backwards? What if the reason you sometimes feel unanswered isn't because God is distant, selective, or testing you, but because you've been asking for things that don't align with what you truly want at the deepest level of your being? What if prayer isn't about convincing God to change His mind, but about aligning your mind with a truth that's already eternally established? Today, we're exploring one of the most liberating sections in A Course in Miracles, Chapter 9, Section 2, The Answer to Prayer. And I want to tell you right now, this teaching has the potential to completely transform your relationship with prayer, with God, and with your own worthiness to receive love, peace, and wholeness. The Course tells us something radical. It says that every prayer is answered, always, without exception. Not sometimes, not when you're good enough, not when you've suffered enough or proven yourself worthy, always. But here's the key. The answer you receive depends entirely on what you're truly asking for. And most of us don't realize that beneath our conscious requests for health, money, relationships, or circumstances to change, we're often unconsciously asking for something else entirely. We're asking to remain separate. We're asking to prove that we're right about our grievances. We're asking for validation of our victim story. God answers the prayer you don't even know you're praying. And His answer is always the same, always consistent, always loving. He gives you Himself. He gives you love. He gives you everything. But when you're asking from a place of fear, from a belief in lack, from a conviction that you're separate and alone, you can't recognize His answer because you're looking for something else entirely. This is why the Course teaches us that the Holy Spirit must translate our prayers. We don't always know what we truly need. We think we need the job, the relationship, the healing of the body. And while these things may come, what we actually need is the healing of our mind, the correction of our perception, the remembrance of who we really are. That's what every true prayer is really asking for, whether we realize it or not. So today, we're going to explore what it means to pray truly, to ask for what already belongs to you, and to recognize the answer that's always being given. Let's begin. Let's start with something that might surprise you. Prayer, according to A Course in Miracles, is not what most of us think it is. It's not a ritual. It's not a formal recitation of words. It's not even a request in the way we typically understand requests. Prayer is actually a state of mind, a way of being, a form of communion with the source of all love and truth. Think about how you were probably taught to pray. Maybe you were told to bow your head, close your eyes, and speak to a God somewhere far away, somewhere outside of you, hoping He'd hear you among the millions of other voices crying out for His attention. Maybe you were taught that the right words mattered, that you needed to be humble enough, grateful enough, faithful enough for your prayers to count. And maybe, just maybe, you've carried a quiet fear that you're not doing it right, that your prayers aren't worthy, or that God is too busy with more important matters to care about what you need. The Course dismantles this entire framework. It tells us that God is not distant. He's not separate from you. He's not evaluating your performance or weighing your worthiness. God is love itself, and you are His creation, inseparable from Him. Prayer, then, isn't about bridging a gap between you and God, because there is no gap. Prayer is about remembering the truth of what you are, about aligning your mind with reality instead of illusion. Here's where it gets really interesting. The Course teaches that we're always praying, whether we realize it or not. Every thought you think is a form of prayer, because every thought is either asking for love or asking for fear, asking for truth or asking for illusion, asking for union or asking for separation. When you think thoughts of grievance, resentment, or judgment, you're praying for separation to be real. When you think thoughts of forgiveness, compassion, and peace, you're praying for love to be recognized. So the question isn't whether you're praying. The question is, what are you praying for? And here's the challenging part. Most of us think we're praying for good things, for healing, for abundance, for happiness. But if we're honest with ourselves, we often simultaneously hold thoughts that contradict those prayers. We ask for peace while clutching our grievances. We ask for love while defending our right to judge. We ask for wholeness while insisting on our identity as broken, limited, separate beings. This is why so many prayers seem to go unanswered. It's not because God refuses to answer. It's because we're asking for two opposing things at once, and we're often more invested in the illusion than in the truth. We say we want healing, but what we really want is for someone else to change, for our circumstances to validate our story, for the world to prove us right. True prayer, the kind the Course is teaching us about, is prayer that asks for one thing only: the truth. It asks to see as God sees. It asks for the correction of our perception. It asks for the removal of the blocks we've placed between ourselves and the awareness of love's presence. This is the prayer that is always answered, because this is the prayer that aligns with God's will, which is also your true will. When you pray this way, you're not begging, you're not bargaining, you're simply opening yourself to receive what has always been yours. Now we come to one of the most beautiful and liberating truths in the entire Course. You cannot ask God for anything He hasn't already given you. Everything you truly want, everything you truly need, everything that constitutes your real happiness and wholeness is already yours. It's your inheritance. It's what you are. Let me say that again, because it's so important. God's love, God's peace, God's joy, His eternal presence, His perfect wholeness. These aren't rewards you have to earn. They're not gifts reserved for the spiritually advanced or the morally pure. They're not things God might give you if you pray hard enough or sacrifice enough or suffer enough. They are what you are right now, in this very moment, whether you're aware of it or not. The problem isn't that you don't have these things. The problem is that you don't believe you have them. You've built an entire identity based on lack, on separation, on the belief that you're incomplete and need something outside yourself to make you whole. And every prayer that comes from that place, no matter how sincere, is really asking for illusion to be made real. It's asking for the ego's version of salvation, which always involves getting something you don't have, changing something outside yourself, or proving that you're special enough to deserve God's attention. But here's what the Course is trying to wake you up to. When you pray for love, you're not asking God to send you love from somewhere else. You're asking to recognize the love that's already surrounding you, flowing through you, constituting your very being. When you pray for peace, you're not asking God to rearrange your circumstances. You're asking for the removal of your own resistance to the peace that already exists beneath all your thoughts of conflict and fear. This is why the Course says that you're only asking for what belongs to you. You're asking to remember what you've forgotten. You're asking to see what you've been refusing to see. You're asking to accept what you've been denying. And God's answer to this prayer is always, eternally, yes. Think about what this means for a moment. It means you're not at the mercy of an external authority who decides whether you deserve to be happy today. It means your worth isn't in question. It means there's no test you need to pass, no performance you need to perfect, no amount of suffering that will finally make you worthy of receiving what you want. You already have it. The question is only whether you're willing to accept it. This is where the Holy Spirit comes in, and this is such a crucial piece of understanding prayer in the Course. The Holy Spirit is described as the mediator, the translator, the one who takes your confused and conflicting prayers and hears only what you truly want beneath all the ego's noise. When you ask for things that would hurt you, things that would reinforce separation, things that would make illusion seem more real, the Holy Spirit translates your prayer into what you're really asking for, which is always love, always truth, always return to your wholeness. So even when you pray from fear, even when you pray from ego, even when you pray for things that wouldn't truly serve you, the Holy Spirit hears your deepest longing and answers that. He gives you what you truly want, not what your frightened, confused mind thinks it wants. This is grace. This is unconditional love in action. The invitation here is profound. Stop begging for what's already yours. Stop trying to earn what cannot be earned because it's already been given. Instead, bring your false beliefs, your sense of lack, your feelings of unworthiness to the Holy Spirit. Ask Him to show you the truth. Ask Him to help you accept your inheritance. That's the prayer that transforms everything. Here's where everything we've been building toward comes together in a truth so powerful, so absolute, that if you really let it in, it will change everything about how you move through your life. God always answers your prayers. Not sometimes, not when conditions are right, not when you've been good enough or faithful enough. Always, without exception, every single time. But here's what you need to understand. God's answer is always the same. It's always love. It's always wholeness. It's always the truth of who you are. God doesn't have multiple responses depending on your situation or your behavior. He doesn't give you peace one day and withhold it the next. He doesn't answer some prayers with yes and others with no. His answer is constant, eternal, unchanging, because He Himself is constant, eternal, unchanging. The reason it seems like your prayers aren't answered, the reason it feels like God is silent or distant or playing favorites, has nothing to do with God. It has everything to do with your ability to recognize and receive His answer. You're looking for a specific outcome. You're waiting for circumstances to change. You're hoping for proof in the physical world that God has heard you. But God's answer exists in a dimension beyond form, beyond circumstance, beyond the temporary fluctuations of the world you see with your body's eyes. Let me give you an example that might make this clearer. Imagine you're struggling financially, and you pray desperately for money. From the ego's perspective, God answering your prayer would mean a check arrives in the mail, or you get a promotion, or you win something. And if those things don't happen, you conclude that God didn't answer. But what if God's answer is actually the gift of peace in the midst of your financial struggle? What if his answer is the opportunity to learn that your worth isn't determined by your bank account? What if his answer is the opening of your mind to see resources and possibilities you couldn't see before because you were paralyzed by fear? God is always giving you himself. He's always extending love, always offering peace, always inviting you to remember your true identity. But if you're demanding that love show up in a specific form, if you're insisting that peace can only come when circumstances change, if you're convinced that you can't be whole until you get what you think you need, then you'll miss his answer completely. You'll be standing in the rain complaining about thirst. This is why the Course emphasizes again and again that prayer is not about changing God's mind or convincing him to give you what you want. Prayer is about changing your mind, about opening yourself to receive what he's already giving. It's about removing the barriers you've constructed against love, the conditions you've placed on peace, the prerequisites you've invented for happiness. And here's the truly miraculous part. When you stop demanding that God's answer look a certain way, when you stop insisting on your own limited vision of what would solve your problem, when you simply open yourself to truth regardless of the form it takes, everything shifts. You begin to see his answer everywhere. You begin to recognize that he's been responding all along in ways you couldn't perceive because you were so fixated on what you thought you needed. God's answer might come as a sudden insight that dissolves years of confusion. It might come as an unexpected conversation that opens a door you didn't even know existed. It might come as a deep, inexplicable peace that descends on you in the middle of chaos. It might come as the ability to forgive what you thought was unforgivable. It might come as the release of a burden you've carried so long you forgot it wasn't part of you. The certainty of God's answer means you never have to doubt again. You never have to wonder if you're loved. You never have to fear that you're alone or forgotten or beyond help. Every moment, in every circumstance, regardless of what's happening in the world of form, God is answering your deepest prayer with the fullness of his love. Your only job is to stop resisting long enough to let it in. This is the gift. This is the promise. This is what makes true prayer not an act of desperation, but an act of recognition, not a plea for help, but a celebration of the help that never stops coming. So here we are, at the end of our exploration. But really, this is just the beginning. Because understanding prayer in this way, understanding that every prayer is answered, that you're only asking for what already belongs to you, that God's love is constant and his response is certain, this isn't just information. This is an invitation to live differently, to pray differently, to relate to God and to yourself in a completely new way. You don't have to beg anymore. You don't have to prove yourself worthy. You don't have to wonder if God is listening or if your voice matters. He is always listening. He is always responding. He is always giving you everything, and that everything is himself, which is love, which is peace, which is the truth of who you are. The practice now is simply this. Bring your fears, your doubts, your sense of lack to the Holy Spirit. Don't try to figure out what you need or how it should come. Don't dictate the form the answer should take. Just ask to see truly. Ask for the correction of your perception. Ask for help in accepting what's already been given, and then watch. Pay attention. Notice how love shows up, how peace emerges, how answers appear in ways you never could have orchestrated or predicted. This is the gift of true prayer. This is the freedom that comes from knowing you're not alone, you're not forgotten, and you're not at the mercy of a capricious universe. You are held always in the perfect love of God, and every prayer you pray is being answered in this very moment. Thank you so much for being here today, for opening your heart and mind to these teachings, for being willing to see prayer in a new light. If this message touched you, if it shifted something in you, if it gave you a glimpse of the peace that's always available, I'd be so grateful. If you'd take a moment to like this video, it helps more people find these teachings, and that means more hearts opening to the truth of God's love. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. We're exploring A Course in Miracles together every single day, going deep into the teachings that can truly transform your life. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today. Maybe it's someone who's struggling, someone who feels like their prayers aren't being heard, someone who's ready for a deeper understanding of their relationship with God. Your share could be the answer to their prayer. And finally, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. How has this changed your understanding of prayer? What's your biggest takeaway? What question is still on your heart? Let's continue this conversation together. Thank you for being part of this community. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, remember, you are loved, you are whole, and every prayer you pray is already answered.